Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Maio. Steve, welcome.
Welcome, little route getting here today, huh? It's like a maze.
The work on the new high school has begun, and it's throwing parking and everything else into a bit of
Parking and
a...
walking into
Yeah.
something.
Well, we get a little more exercise
That's
coming
true.
in and
That's
out of the
good.
building.
That's good.
So there's that.
Excuse me, the dust
Gesundheit.
from walking in here got me too.
So this is part two of the upcoming annual town meeting, which will begin on April 29th this year.
Yep. Gavel comes down at 7 p.m. at the Memorial Auditorium at the Galvin Middle School.
And, as we said last one, we have 23 articles to deal with.
Yes.
And, we had talked about most of the major ones in the last show, but we ended up, there's on the list an easement for Hickory Hill and Greenwood Street.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So on the corner of Hickory Hill and Easement, there was a developer that went in front of the Board of Appeals to do something, build a house there or do whatever. Not a subdivision. No one should get up in arms. I think it's a house. And, whenever anybody goes in front of the Board of Appeals or goes for a building permit for that matter,
Yep.
the application does get run around to other departments to see, it goes to, make sure there's fire suppression in the area, make sure there's water pressure for a house in the area.
Right.
And when this one went through DPW and through our engineering department, they said, if you're familiar with that area, there is a retaining wall on Greenwood Street and Hickory that, we may, if we ever put sidewalks in that side of the street, because that is kind of a well-walked street, no, they're on the other side, we may need to do some work there. So as part of the Zoning Board of Appeals decision, the builder agreed to give the town an easement if we ever needed to extend the sidewalk in that area or to, build a retaining wall so the sidewalk would work that we want to put in if the town so decides. So because that is, the obtaining a land right, and that needs to go to town meeting, because only town meeting can instruct the town council to actually accept the easement. So that's why that's on town meeting floor, and that will need a 2/3 vote. But it sounds to me like there's no cost, and it sounds to me like it's a very good thing, because, we're doing a lot of work on sidewalks all over town, and there are some areas that they're hard to put in because, as you and I both know, over the years that didn't have them, there's maybe been some encroachment, maybe
Absolutely.
it's a front lawn, and, this is a chance where we had something in front of us, so we kind of nipped that in the bud before it happened.
And there's been some development in that area anyway. A couple of older houses on Miriam, I think it is, were taken down, and they've done a beautiful job with some new ones there.
It's a really nice area of town too, and that is a nice walk. It's a little bit of a hill in it. If you're going up Greenwood a little bit, right by the Ewell School, the Ewell baseball field, where a lot of us probably played Little League back in the day, or soccer, or whatever. So it's a nice area. So that's where that is coming from.
Yeah. The big one may be, not going to say it will be, but the big one may be the MBTA zoning, which we've talked about on the show before, the so-called Chapter 40A.
Yes.
Where do things stand on that right now?
So anyways, the town has spent a good year plus in, a working group was set up to kind of look at this bylaw, look at this, directive from the Commonwealth, from the state, to put together a area around the train station that would create the ability to build some housing. Not the requirement, but would create the ability. So that necessitates a zoning change. So what's happened is that the working group, which was, members of the town council, members of the planning board, some other citizens, working very closly with our Community and Economic Development Director, Erin Kokinda. Went through a lot of iterations and then presented to the planning board. Planning board decided on an area around the train station, solely the North Ave train stop, not the one in Greenwood, and to put in, to change the zoning to allow 4 families in that area as a matter of right, that would technically increase the capacity, which is required by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, Wakefield is seen as a commuter rail community. Makes sense for us because there's a commuter rail that comes right through town.
Right, two stations.
2 stations. So we had to create the capacity. I think the number was 1,600 or so potential units in an area. That's not new units because there's already units there. It would be if you took and flattened that whole area, could you build 1,600 or 1,696, I think it actually is, units. So what the planning board has proposed is an area that is within a half mile of the train station that could accommodate what the state is looking for. Now, that's the planning board. Planning board's submission. There is also a citizen submission that shrinks the area a little bit, wanting to do just the minimum that is required by the state. Okay, the planning board article here probably calls for a little bit, definitely calls for a little bit more area. The other citizen petition calls for less. So there will be 2 submissions to town meeting, and who knows? There can always be an amendment on the floor, as well as long as it's within the 4 corners of the document, of the article. So I would expect a fair amount of time to be spent on discussing this issue that was put upon the communities within the commuter rail system by the state, and if you do not comply, the minimum penalty would be that you would not qualify for certain grants, of which Wakefield has enjoyed well over $3 million over the last few years. So,
and in fact, one community just recently lost their grants because they failed to
the community of Milton was having a seawall built. I think they got $150,000 for a seawall. I didn't even know Milton needed a seawall, but I guess they have a bay coming in there somewhere. And their town meeting actually passed a zoning area. Then they have a referendum procedure, as we have. It went to a referendum, and the referendum negated town meeting action. And now the Attorney General decided to sue the city of or the town of Middleton, I guess, town of Milton, and Milton has counterclaimed, and that trial will not start until October. So that's going to be well after our town meeting.
Right.
And we're required by the state to have approval of an area that is acceptable to the state by December 31st of 2024, which means that it really would be better for us to get something settled at this town meeting, because then it goes to the Attorney General's office and needs to be looked over. Although the submissions, the town planning board submission has been sent.
Right.
The citizen petition came a little bit later. That's also been sent to get the input from the state on it, but they're not all that quick in giving it back to us.
Right.
So I expect that to be a very spirited debate. First of all, it's zoning, and zoning is always complicated and contentious because it's confusing.
Right.
Zoning is not an easy thing to understand, and although there'll be maps and there'll be presentations at town meeting, it's still very confusing. And I get that. I understand that. It's very confusing for those of us that have been dealing with it for months or almost a year now.
Now, will Wakefield have to have a referendum special election after town meeting?
No, they will not have to, but someone could get the signatures and ask for it.
Right. Okay.
So I anticipate those two to get quite a bit of conversation at town meeting.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that are going to attract the most people to a session of town meeting.
Yeah. There are some others too.
That's true.
This is a pretty good menu.
In fact,
Smorgasbord for all.
40A is one of the 4 citizen petitions.
Yes.
And what are the other 3?
Well, there is a citizen petition, and that I think is Article 9.
Yep.
And we place it at Article 9 because it has part and parcel to do with trash pickup.
Yep.
And right now, the rule in Wakefield, based on a vote of the Board of Selectmen at the time, I believe in 2018, and it was the practice anyway, that the town will provide trash pickup and recycling service for any dwelling of 4 units or less. So 4 is the max. Other units being looked at by the town council as commercial.
Which covers a lot of multifamily dwellings in the town.
And the 4 or less covers the vast majority.
Yeah.
So if you have an apartment building, trash will not be picked up by the town or recycling. There are some people that live in either apartment buildings or a condo complex of more than 4 units that feel that is patently unfair and thinks that the town should pick up trash and recycling from those units as well. Now, the fairness aside, I guess I'll give you my opinion on it.
Sure.
On our show, right? I can do that. Is that I think that, there's a lot of hoops if this were even to pass that would have to be jumped over. So for one instance, if you pass this as written, that basically anybody can get trash pickup that's in the town, there would have to be contracts with the providers because in many instances, people would be going, the trash and recycling pickup would be going on to private property, okay? Think about a big subdivision like Heron Pond, okay?
Liability alone.
Liability for there'd have to be a agreement with the provider to do that. Not everyone's going to bring a blue barrel out to Salem Street to take care of it. It's not going to work if you're way down the end. And even in some of these other places that have a large, have a dumpster, would that include dumpster pickup? Would that mean a truck would go and pull the dumpster? And so those would have to be worked out. And there would be an added cost to the taxpayer, okay? And, I think I can safely say that, and our DPW director and/or the business manager over there can discuss this at town meeting. I think you're looking at probably an increase of $1 million in trash pickup that currently is that's paid through the tax levy. So that would be a big strain on the town financially.
And how much of the added cost would the tax levy against the apartment owners, the apartment
that's
management companies?
Right. That's a good question. Would their assessment go up because now they're getting a service they didn't? I don't think it would cover that personally, but that is a good question. I don't think it would cover that. So we would have to make some hard choices as a community what we want to do there.
Because otherwise it sounds like they would get the service, but the homeowners would bear the cost.
Right, because the taxation of condos, they're usually assessed for less, so their tax payments are less.
Right.
Although I think maybe some of the way things are going, some are going for an awful lot, but I think the houses are still increasing more. So and then you have some of these larger, apartment buildings that are again right on the street, and you think if you go down Foundry Street, some of the new developments there,
Harvard
Mills, they have dumpsters in the back.
Yep.
So there would have to be some different arrangements in picking those up. Those aren't going to be, again, you're going to go on their property to do that. The other issue is, when I'm looking at this, my opinion, frankly, is that, when you bought into the condo complex or when you moved there and paid rent, that was the deal. So, and not that saying that deals need to stay the same forever, but that is the deal. We do allow people that want to recycle clean cardboard. Anybody who wants, we have a dumpster at Town Hall. We have a dumpster at the Yardway site.
Yep.
And that's because, and I'm happy for anybody who brings it in, because guess what? We're right now on the market able to sell the clean cardboard and actually create a profit for the town. So that's really good. Same thing with scrap metal. So if you're out from any town, bring your scrap metal to us. We're happy to take it and sell it. And
Be careful when you say that.
I know, but that's all right.
We could have a line down the street.
But that
on
we'll make
Saturday.
money on it. It's okay. So that's one of them. There's another article, again, by Citizen Group, that, again, and it is, again, part and parcel of these larger development units regarding the tiering of water rates. And I think the belief in some of those units are that if it's a condo complex, again, and for some reason has one water meter for the entire complex, of course, they're going to be in the upper tier because of that. I'll tell you that the town council has looked at this and they've had presentations from the DPW. One thing that's on your water bill and on my water bill, being in a single family home, is the kind of a service fee.
Yes.
So if you put the service fee on if you spread that out over every unit at a condo complex, probably would be about equal. So it's probably not a big difference there. But you know what? If you have 10 signatures, that's the great thing about town meeting, right? You can put this forward and have the townspeople talk about it. So those are those two items. There actually are more than there. There's another citizen petition to rezone the kind of grassy area where years ago the carnival was at a few points for the 4th of July parade on North Ave and Corner Power Parkway.
Yes.
That area has been vacant for years and years.
Yep.
There is a group that wants to take that front parcel, which has a lot of wetlands on it, and create a storage facility. Probably thinking that the people that are moving to the head of the lake for the condo complex there that's being built probably aren't going to have a lot of room to store their stuff. Maybe they want a storage space.
But the fact that this is a wetlands, doesn't that sort of change the equation, or shouldn't it change the equation?
I think it changes the equation because the wetland line has already been delineated for that area. So this facility, as presented, my understanding is, would fit outside of the wetland area, kind of in the middle. It's not going to be huge. I think someone might, if you wanted to build housing there, you probably would want to spread out more. So this may be one of the fewer uses for the property, and that property's been vacant for a long time too.
Right.
So that's going to take a 2/3 vote of town meeting because that's a zoning change. That isn't for housing. So that's going to be an interesting one. I think another citizen petition that has flown a little under the radar.
Well, we have 4 citizen petitions and we have 5 citizen articles.
Yeah.
So let's
they're a little
make sure that people understand the difference between the two.
5 subjects, I guess.
Yeah.
So there is one to another citizen article and petition. Actually, 2 of them are in this area. Is to rezone an area on kind of the other side of 128, Audubon Road, Teal Road, that area going towards Colonial Point, Old Pleasure Island for you old timers here like us, to have a marijuana dispensary there that is not medical necessarily. So that has gone
recreational.
That has flown a little bit under the radar.
Okay.
That submission was actually approved by the planning board, or endorsed by the planning board, I should say, and that is Article 19, I believe. Is it 19?
Okay.
Article 19, yes, which will be after the discussions regarding the 40A issues.
Yeah.
So I think that people will be pretty well into the zone at that point, no pun intended, to talk about those zoning issues. So, it's interesting. I was actually have talked to some of the other communities that have, recreational dispensaries in them. And from what they've told me, they haven't had any problems with it. Particularly Melrose has one on the Route 99 area over there on Malden
Yes,
line.
over by Lowe's.
By Lowe's, yeah. We could say where what was it, the Palace used to be? We were growing up,
Yes,
maybe?
yes,
Chateau de
the
Ville.
disco.
Chateau de Ville.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
When we were growing up. So, and they haven't had a lot of issues. So that one, I think, had one little blurb in the item after the hearing. But you haven't heard a lot about it. It's been 40A all the time, as far as the zoning is concerned.
Well, but we went through that exercise some years ago.
Right.
When there was a threat of adult-oriented
Right.
businesses coming into the area.
Yes.
And town meeting at the time voted to make that area the adult entertainment district of the town.
Right. They made that to be adult entertainment. Town also voted in the last 10 years, I guess, to not allow any recreational marijuana shops in Wakefield. So that's what the town voted at the time. I'm kind of wondering if has times changed a little bit. I mean, you've seen a lot of these in our neighboring communities. You see the billboards everywhere for them.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to hear the discussion on that one.
It's
at town
yeah, and especially, you know, which voters that will attract to that meeting,
Yeah.
you know, to discuss it.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating to see what different articles do to the makeup of the speakers.
Right. No, exactly.
You
It
know.
was. It'll be very interesting.
Yep.
We then have. We're going to round out our town meeting, and I'll give you my prediction at the end of our little session here. What I think the days will be. But there is a Article 21,
Yep.
which is an article regarding the American flag, and basically this article says that at town-owned buildings. There will be the American flag only, with the exception of the missing in action POW MIA flag, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts flag, if there is a second flagpole.
Yep.
And if there's a second flagpole, you could also fly the General John Galvin flag and the Marine Corps flag at Landrigan Field on a second flagpole.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, there's been a lot of discussion about flags and what flag should be flown, a lot of social media stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this one will be another lengthy discussion. The town council at its last meeting voted to allow the at Landrigan Field, the Marine Corps flag. Colonel Landrigan was a Marine, and that's why the flag is there now. Allow that to be under the American flag at the Landrigan Field. There's only one flagpole, and had always allowed the Galvin flag to be under the flagpole. Only one flagpole again at the Galvin Middle School.
It's named for a four-star general.
Four-star general. Also, not a policy, but for this year, the town council also voted to fly the AmeriCal division flag
Mm-hmm.
at the AmeriCal Civic Center on the second flagpole for ostensibly 330 days of the year, with exceptions for the Progress Pride flag during certain days and the Juneteenth flag during certain days in June. But on Flag Day, which is June 14th, which is also the birthday of the Army, the AmeriCal division flag will fly at the AmeriCal. Just for this year.
Plus, we're coming up on the 80th anniversary of D-Day
Yes, we are.
in June.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's I think the flags bring out a lot of passion in everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we will end town meeting with two very passionate articles on both sides,
Yep.
both against citizens petitions.
Yep.
One of which is requiring myself to send a letter to our federal delegation, urging them to stop all transfers of arms without exception from U.S. to the state of Israel, and to immediately stop all scheduled and potential funding transfers of funds from U.S. to the state of Israel. So that is that article, and the final article of the evening basically is
The
just
meeting.
the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. meeting is basically the opposite, and it really would like to have funding, increased funding for Israel, and work to immediately release all of the hostages held in Gaza since October 7th.
Given the passions on this particular subject right now, that one could be very interesting.
Yes, both of those could be very interesting. There's been a lot of conversation about this subject, not only townwide, but statewide, nationwide, worldwide, I guess.
Yep.
And I think you and I both share this view. I think we are both great fans of town meeting. And I think we both are hopeful and actually expect from our experience at town meeting that the electorate will be considerate, will be respectful, and let people say their opinion. You don't have to agree to their opinion.
Right.
That's what town meeting's all about.
Right.
Town meeting's all about that there's an airing of opinions and then we vote.
And for the most part, it has been exactly that way. The instances when it has broken down are very, very few.
Very few. And as I've kind of said to, a number of, I'm lucky enough sometimes to get invited to speak to high school government classes. And, I've often said to them, I said, America is like an idea. It's an idea that works if we make it work. And part of that is a great discussion. And then the winner, whoever wins the vote, that's the vote, and we accept that,
right?
And we move on and we work within that. Hasn't always been that way the last few years, it seems. There have been some good examples for these kids to follow. What's going on with some figures, and I'm saying both sides.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything. When I went to Georgetown, I had a philosophy or a political theory professor. And he was a great professor, and he started one day about coming in and throwing a baseball bat to the class, and throw the baseball bat, and you'd catch it, and when you were kids, you'd go up the bat, right?
Right.
And whoever got the top would get the first pick,
right
of all the kids. He says, that happens in America, and he goes, and no one says anything. Okay, you won, you got the first pick. No one complains about that.
Right.
They just do it. He says, another part of the world, they take the bat and they hit you. So that's the difference between America and the idea of, democracy wins, or we're going to accept the outcome of the bat throwing. So.
Well, and the nice thing is, over the last century, until recently, we've seen that idea spread.
Yes.
And it needs to continue to spread. And be nurtured.
Yes.
Instead of attacked the way it is. And it's sad to see attacks made upon a system that has worked with very few exceptions, the major one being the war between the states, for over 200 years.
Yeah.
We're coming up on 250, and it has been an inspiration to other nations in that time.
I agree.
If only we can get our own citizenry behind the
Exactly.
idea.
I know. It would help.
That unfortunately is a discussion that could go on for hours and hours.
One thing that we will be doing, and then we
Yes.
can make our bets on
Yes.
our wager, our friendly wager on how many next town meeting is. We will have a consent agenda, which we've done in the past, where there'll be a few articles that, because traditionally they haven't had any discussion,
The housekeeping articles.
housekeeping articles, and that they can be taken out of order and with one vote. But if anybody doesn't want to have that, we pull it off the consent agenda and you have the ability to discuss it. So I'm hoping that the town will let that happen so we can move a couple of things on. And with that being said, my prediction for town meeting is that we will go into the fourth night.
I said fourth at the last one, but hearing some of the drumming over 40A, I'm starting to wonder.
You're starting to-
And also with the last two on Israel, I'm going to have to say 5.
All right, you heard it here. I've got 4 days. David's got 5.
Yep. And we will see next
There's
month.
lunch on the line.
I think that's a fair wager.
That's a fair one.
Hopefully you will join us. This is your opportunity as voters and as residents to come down, participate in the governance of this town for the next fiscal year. So please avail yourselves of the opportunity. We need to see more people in there.
And I will say that although these articles are, some of them are, very technical, and can be very confusing. They are the warrant is on the town website, so you can click on that and you can read it, try to understand it a little bit. And believe me, it is very technical. But there's been hearings on all of these. So if you want to hear about the budget, you can go to town council meetings or finance committee meetings. Their videos are all on the town website. If you want to look at the 40A articles, the working group had meetings, as did the planning board. There's a lot of hearings on that, so there's a lot of things you can look at and try to get a little more of a flavor of it. So there are some resources to look at it and to get a little bit more, learn a little bit more about it before you come into town meeting.
Absolutely.
So please take advantage of that. We're very lucky to have a very robust website that has every meeting videoed on it, so you can watch it and you can stop it, come back. I'm not saying you want to sit and watch a 4-hour town council meeting. You can fast forward to some areas if you want, but
unlike a lot of communities who don't yet have that.
Don't have that. And then a lot of these are on YouTube. Through our help with WCAT, which
they're on the WCAT channel.
So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of try to educate yourself before you come in. So it'll be more meaningful for you, I think.
So hopefully we'll see larger numbers at town meeting this year. Please join us. If you have any questions, feel free to call Steve's office. He'll be happy to answer them.
Absolutely.
And in the meantime, thank you for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you.